Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to Sasol Build to Last. We appreciative of your time, and we're hopeful that we're going to spend some great 2 days together. I'd also like to thank the organizers to organize this thing for us. I do believe, especially at this point in time, what we're going through in the world, I think this will help us to kind of rethink on how we see the world today. I think before I get on with the engagement of today, I would like to start first and foremost with the safety moment. And I think it's an opportune time to actually talk about what we're going through as the global community, which is COVID-19. And before I kick off, I would actually like to draw from the African tradition how they actually conceptualize what it means to be a human being. If you look into the conception of Ubuntu, it basically speaks to the effect of what it means to be a human. And that means we are because of others. And with that, I would like to borrow from that conception before I kick off with the safety moment and say organizations of today are organizations of today because of their employees. With that, COVID-19 has caused a lot of disruptions, both from health perspective, mental perspective, economic well-being perspective, et cetera, et cetera. So today really is all about the mental health of our employees. And I'm really speaking about this because of our audiences that we have today. You guys are the people who are leading organizations today. You guys are the people who are leading people today. People, leave their home places to go to your organizations and do the work. And that simply means their well-being matters to us. And their well-being matters to you, both from business standpoint, relationship standpoint, and just for themselves. And what COVID has done, it has caused a lot of despair. And one of those despair is economic challenges. What that does to humans, it causes a lot of stuff. If I have to mention a couple of things, there's a sense of despair within communities. There's a sense of anxiety. People are worried about their loved ones. People are worried about, would I ever see my parents tomorrow? Would I see my cousin tomorrow? That impacts what people go through in the organization. It would be unfair to actually say when people come into organization, they must leave who they are at home. They must leave what bothers them at home. That's inhumane expectations. So we need to be conscious of all of these impacts, and more especially mental health issues. We understand, for an example, that the mental health is at its peak at this point in time. So with all of these complexities, with all of these COVID challenges, with things changing around us at speed of light, we need to take a moment and think about how does that affect the mental conditions of our people? How does that, in fact, also indirectly affect how we engage with each other in a business space? And it's actually a responsibility of our leaders, right, to make sure that the people are healthy, to make sure that the people are operating within conditions in which they must operate, both from a value perspective and from business success perspective. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. They can be achieved together. So as a leader, what are the signs that your employees or behavioral aspects that you would notice that whenever your employee is going through a difficult time or is highly impacted by COVID? We have about 6 of them. You can read them through the screens, but a couple of that I would like to highlight is headaches, insomnia, tense muscles, body aches and pain. People are walking around having grandpas, inability to relax. People are worried about the economic status, this job security is no more there again because of COVID. And that affects people. People move from, the need to live to the need to survive. And that in itself is anxiety. People feeling overwhelmed and sense of loss of control because of COVID. So as leaders, what our employees are demanding of us is for us to be conscious of what they're going through. It's for us to be conscious of what the world is imparting into them. It's not for our own employees to choose to go through these things. It's external forces that are affecting all of us. Even to you as an SME leader, you go through this. So you also must be in a position to allow your own employees to point out these things to you. Because if you are negatively affected through this, for an example, mechanisms, you behave differently. You have unrealistic expectations. You want people to cover up for you, even when it's impossible to do so. So you must also allow yourself to get guidance from your own employees. And I like that concept because it's a concept of co-creation, right? You co-share, you co-learn, you build together. Not only building things that your organization is reliant on, but building each other as people within organizations. So I really like this conception of seeing organizations as living organs, and it's us people who are those living organs, and how do we make them successful? Fundamental to that is being concerned about the health being of your employees. From a safety standpoint, one may ask a question and say, what are the implications? And I've already mentioned one or two, because things as simple as a paper card. People get paper cards because they're not focusing on the work. They're focusing whether I'll be having a job tomorrow. There's a CEO who's giving an announcement. Even if it's a positive announcement, people do not know. They just anxious, and they always worry about how they're going to survive. And that's why they're not paying attention to the things they should be doing. If you're handling pieces of papers, you're not paying attention to the pieces of papers. That's why you get small incidents like paper cut. And when it comes to safety, there's no difference between big and small, right? Because small things can escalate to become big things. If you have a paper card, it simply means we're at risk of doing a lot more damage to yourself because you are not aware. How do we minimize this type of risks in our organizations? Share information as early as we can, as often as we can. Listen to each other, respect privacy. Some people are comfortable, for example, to talk about what they're going through. Some people are uncomfortable to talk about what they're going through. Because nowadays, when you hear that somebody is not well, the assumption is he probably has COVID. And we all know there's a negative connotation on COVID. Even when somebody just has flu, they kind of hide away because people would think they have COVID. Whether it's a right or wrong thing to have negative connotation around COVID, we will never know. But I just think it's something that we can openly talk about so that we can ensure that others are safe. And we kind of look after them when they go through such. Continue dialogue in Teams meetings to allow the adoption to new ways of working. We understand, for an example, some people work from home. The question we should be asking is, what are the safety aspects you considering when you work from home? Are you sitting in a kitchen chair? Are you sitting in a proper, office chair? That's things that we should show concern about when we are business leaders. It would be a remiss of us to expect, for an example, people to still be safe if we are not concerned about the working conditions at home. And I like what organizations are doing nowadays, where they actually visit employees' home look at their conditions of work, ensure that they have all the necessary tools to actually deliver on their work, because that in itself reduces anxiety, because it tells your employees that you actually do care about their well-being. So safety is still important, whether you're working from home or you in the office. Couple of last thoughts. Refrain from negative conversations in the workplace, whether you're at home, whether it's Teams call or Skype call. We're not saying people must shy away from talking about challenges, but if people keep hearing, bad news all the time, that's not good. And we're not saying we shouldn't have, a true sense of Ubuntu about asking the losses or sharing about the losses that we have, because we understand nowadays, for a lack of a better word, life has come to be cheap. And then we should share that with others to really also accentuate the need for safety. Lastly, reaffirm every employee's safety accountability regardless of their position. And again, I want to take it back to you as business leaders of today, because the economy of South Africa is reliant on you. If you do not look after your employees, your business may not be successful. And if your business is not successful, it simply means we're losing an anchoring in terms of South African economy, because your companies, small businesses are what anchors our economy of tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, that's safety moment. I would like then to, before I talk about engagement rules of today, I would like to introduce today's session and really talk about why are we here. And again, I'm going back to the COVID-19 itself. As a Sasol organization, COVID-19 has reminded us of our own values. And some of those values is to look after the communities in which we operate. Sasol employees will call that over-the-fence communities, because we understand that we cannot be successful if we don't classify the communities in which we operate as our stakeholders. So, and this, you guys, as an SMEs, you come out of these communities, right? And we do believe if we partner with you, if we co-create with you, we can deliver what we call a shared value. That means a value for you, a value for us, a value for South African economy, and a value for Sasol shareholders. So today, it has been inspired by the fact that we do notice that our SMEs are negatively impacted by what COVID has done. This COVID disruptions has changed how we see the world today, has changed how the world is today, has changed the business environment. So how business used to be is no longer there. The customers have shifted because of the COVID-19 external forces. And we want to, because it's part of our purpose, we want to help you to survive, to create more value, to, again, partner with us, get with us into our journey, create value for you, for the communities in which you come from, and also inspire you on your own personal space, professional life, personal life, to impart into small businesses. What this means is this. So we will hear a lot more about how to survive in this new environment. What I mean by this environment. So today we're experiencing a lot of volatility. We're experiencing a lot of ambiguity. We experience a lot of, I just talked about it, anxiety. Customers have shifted. And as Sasol, we have learned that when a customer shifts, you must shift. In fact, that's how, at some point in time, we came up with our digital, transformation. Because customers have shifted. If we do not shift, customers are going to leave behind us. They're going to go to those who can serve their needs today. And we would like you to shift with those customers. So you'll hear a lot more about, for an example, how do you, in the world of today, as an SMME, access opportunities? Do you still have to make a phone call to access the opportunity? Do you still have to visit a certain place to access opportunities? And what we see in the business of today, that has changed. You don't have to, run around with pieces of papers in looking for opportunities. And we want to introduce those opportunities to you. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker of today. In fact, I actually forgot. Before I do that, I'll talk about that after Lebelo in terms of the engagement and what we have for you. But let me introduce quickly Lebelo to set the tone for today. Lebelo is our Chief Procurement Officer, very, very passionate about, like I said, co-creating transformational aspects of businesses, ensuring that businesses are becoming responsible towards the communities in which they operate, social responsibility aspect. Lebelo joined Sasol in 2001. Like I said, he's our Chief Procurement Officer. We're here partly because of him today. He has held various roles in capital projects, environment over the years, degree in law, postgraduate qualification in labor relation. Again, speaks to what speaks to him as human. And most importantly, he's got master's degree in business leadership. And today is really about looking to leaders like him to give us pieces of insights into the world as we see it today. With that, I'll hand over to Lebelo.
Thank you very much, Oratile. I hope everybody can hear me loud and clear. And if I am not coming out loud and clear, I'm hopeful that our technicians will make sure that they attend to that. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning once more and a warm welcome to our very first webinar series. We call this Build to Last. It's an initiative that we are extremely proud of and are quite excited to bring you along on this journey with us. For the past few years, we've been hosting masterclasses, which were linked to specific industries. And although these have been very well received and beneficial to many SMMEs, we felt that given the COVID pandemic and the events that transpired largely in the better part of the whole of last year, the COVID-19 pandemic taking its toll on small businesses, we felt it is necessary that perhaps we need to look at a different approach that not only focuses on including more SMMEs into the work that we're doing for their benefit, but we also address and speak to the topics that are most prevalent in the minds of SMMEs and their lives. Similarly to our masterclasses, this webinar platform was created as a knowledge sharing tool, which is aimed at creating visibility on opportunities to entrepreneurs and to explore and fortify their business opportunities so that they can succeed in future. One of the barriers that has been identified through research is access to information is another barrier that leads to SMMEs not surviving their existence. Let me begin by acknowledging and thanking each and every one of you for being here today. We know it's not very easy. It is the new norm. We try our best to do everything digitally. As you can see, I would have loved to be with the team in the room, but for various reasons, including as Oratile was introducing, that COVID is a big issue for us. We want to make sure that people are safe, and for that reason, I had to operate from the home office. So welcome to each and everyone here. To all our SMEs joining us today, you play a very integral part of our business. And not only that, but you play a very integral part in the livelihood of our economy. You would know the value that SMEs bring across the board, and it's a globally accepted norm. We are very pleased to welcome once again those of you who have been on this journey with us for some time in our previous masterclasses and webinars. And we're also pleased to welcome those who are in the fold for the first time with us. We hope that collective contributions from these webinars will amount to tangible value for your business. To all the speakers, panelists, thank you very much for being so generous with your time. We appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge, expertise, and experiences, without which others are likely to make the same mistakes you may have gone through in your life. And in a community that is caring about one another, this is not ideal for national cohesion. So we can't allow people to go through the same mistakes that you have gone through. And it is greatly appreciated that you open yourself and make yourself vulnerable to be asked questions, and so you could share your knowledge and expertise with the rest of the others in order to avoid the same mistakes. It is a pleasure to also give a special welcome to Mr. Lincoln Mali, who's the newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of Net1. He'll be delivering the keynote address tomorrow, so please be around for that. It sounds to be a very interesting conversation with him. Congratulations, Mr. Mali, on your appointment, and thank you for offering your time so generously, especially at such a momentous time in your career. It would be amiss of me then to not acknowledge our partners, without whom much of what we do would not be possible. To George and team, thank you very much for making this event a success, and we look forward to engaging with you in many others. And finally, to our Sasol colleagues, thank you for joining and keeping the developmental spirit quite alive in this organization. Really appreciate it. So colleagues, we've titled the event for today and tomorrow as Built to Last. One was asked what it is. What is built to last? Perhaps some context is important before I zoom into explaining exactly what built to last is. I think we are all clear, and it's an undisputed fact, that change is the only constant thing in life. Everything else around us is continuously changing rather. And although COVID-19 pandemic is the most significant disruption to have impacted our society and economy, it is not the only challenge that businesses fail, and particularly small businesses fail, and are likely to face into the future. If you look at research, as I indicated, SMEs at the height of the pandemic, it's about 90% of small businesses believe that would have to close down. In fact, in an article I was reading the other day, it's believed that 5 in 7 SMEs fall under or fail on a yearly basis because of difficulties that they experience. It's an unfortunate reality, a sad one for that matter, and it's sad for those who did not survive, because we do know that as they fault and close down their businesses, they're taking thousands of jobs with them, something that our economy cannot afford, something that our society cannot afford. So the impact of the COVID on small businesses is far-reaching. It has just simply reinforced the importance of SMEs in our economy and how vulnerable they are. We've always spoken about those vulnerabilities. We've always spoken about what needs to be done. But in the wake of the COVID pandemic, it becomes even more critical that we look at how do we do so. So we do know that small businesses are the hardest hit by the pandemic. It affects not only the demand for their products and services, but support that they can routinely access from government and corporates. The reality is that corporates are also facing unprecedented struggles as a result of the pandemic, which creates a knock-on effect on social investments, external spend in general, leaving SMEs with insufficient support to weather the COVID storm that already is affecting, to a great extent, their livelihood. So what was our response as an organization in Sasol? We know people cannot be close to one another for social distancing reasons and compliance with the legislation that governs how we respond to the COVID pandemic. We said to ourselves, how do we continue providing the support and much needed interventions that SMEs would not normally receive without having to contribute quite a large amount of their income and money towards? And we said, let's look at programs and processes that we can introduce to address some of these. Many people are speaking about this. Many people are having interventions around this. You'd receive quite a large number of invitations to particular SMEs and events and seminars, obviously, which would require you to contribute a certain amount of money towards participating. We said as an organization to ourselves, what is it that we have to do in the wake of the pandemic? We then introduced, or rather developed, what we call the Build to Last webinars. This is a series of engagements we would have with you, which would like to help SMEs address the challenges that are brought on by the pandemic specifically, but also to provide with tools and strategies that you can implement to manage your business disruptions from various SWAN events. We're now focusing on the pandemic, but there could be many others that would be facing you as you navigate and grow your business. So the series will be delivered in 4 chapters, as we call them, which represent the journey that you as an SME must take to ensure your business overcomes challenges brought by COVID and the resulting economic conditions. There'll be more detail around this as we go on. I'll just touch on a high level what these 4 chapters talk about. The first chapter, it is about the power to survive. This addresses topics that relate to responding to the effects of the pandemic and current economic challenges by outlining business survival strategies that can be used in the face of major disruptions to ensure business continuity. So there are things that big corporates can implement because of the size and volumes that they are able to amass amongst themselves. But what is it that you can do when you are faced with this? How do you survive? Because the very first important thing is survival in the context of such challenges. How do you survive? Once you've come up with the understanding of how you survive, our next chapter talks to opportunities to improve. How do you improve what would be inefficient systems and processes to maximize growth and maintain continuity? Because it doesn't mean your good system that you had a year ago remains good and effective today. You need to say, is it still efficient given the challenges that we are facing? You've now improved those opportunities. You've now seen opportunities of how to improve. Our 3rd chapter then talks about upgrading and optimizing. This focuses on ramping up on what's working, covering topics relating to upgrading of infrastructure, optimizing ways of working, customer relationship management, and how to apply these learnings to maintaining your growth. Because it is important that when you talk infrastructure, it cannot be in the traditional definition as we've known it, that we talk about bricks and mortar. It is about what do you do, what is your infrastructure given the current environment, and how do you take advantage of it to save costs in certain instances, but to also expand your business under the difficult conditions that we find ourselves. And finally, it is about forecasting and thriving. This chapter will prepare you for greater success in what we call the new normal and provide forecasting tools that you can use for the uncertain future. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to engage us on what challenges you face and what tools and topics you'd like us to explore. These are the 4 that we've highlighted. There'll be a lot of detail implemented or rather explored as we present them. But what are your challenges? What else do you want us to look at? What else do you want us to integrate in our programs that will make your lives a little bit easier as you move forward? This series is meant for your benefit, and our goal here is to make a significant impact in the areas that mean the most to you and your business. And hence the call for you to come forward with whatever challenges and things that you think, if we address them, might be of assistance to you. It is a first program that we are launching, and we look forward to collaboration with yourselves, because this is not for Sasol's benefit, it is but for your benefit. And ours is about creating platforms, and hopefully they will impact you in the right direction towards your success. Sasol has been committed to transformation, as you may well know, and we are very committed to empowering small businesses within our fence line communities as a primary goal. It is important that the communities around us can benefit from being in close proximity with us, and therefore we are pursuing our enterprise and supply development objectives to support the inclusion and transformation of SMEs within those areas, which will enable them to scale up, to become sustainable, but to also be integrated into our value chain within the procurement structures that we have. As a result of that, we are continuously reviewing our processes. We're continuously trying to identify and eliminate barriers that limit the visibility and integration of SMEs into our value chain. We acknowledge and admit that we probably are not 100% there, but it is a journey. It is a journey that we'd like to walk along with you. We've done quite a lot in the last few years, and partly, for example, we have in the last year had the cries of our SMEs that there's a difficulty in having visibility on opportunities that they can bid for at Sasol. We have gone through a very lengthy process of adopting a digital platform that will make it easier for SMEs to transact with us. So we introduced last year the linkage platform. That platform will allow visibility towards procurement-ready SMEs for our Sasol procurement people, and it will also provide SMEs with opportunity to see what RFQs and opportunities that Sasol would want to send to the market. So the linkage platform will be utilized to advertise those opportunities. And as I said, there'll be more to be explored on this. There's a topic that will be covered on linkage. And please ask more questions about the platform. It is yours to use, but also as an enabler to bridge the gap between SMEs and Sasol. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, we did not sit back and saying, well, it's everybody for himself. We continued our business development support for SMEs. We've continued maintaining contact on a remote basis with them and ensured that all of those who are part of our ESD program continue to receive the benefits associated with being part of that program. As an example of how we had continued to take advantage of the COVID pandemic challenge, we've leveraged opportunities that came out of them. We recruited some of our chemicals SMEs to partner with us as an organization to produce sanitizers, and we've assisted quite a number of the textile clothing SMEs to manufacture masks for communities and our stakeholders. And a lot of these went into distribution to various needy communities, not only here in South Africa, but we also went as far as distributing some of the sanitizers produced by these SMEs to communities in Mozambique. As you know, we have operations in that country as well. So the point I'm making here is that notwithstanding the challenges of the pandemic, but even more so, notwithstanding Sasol's own financial challenges that we experienced last year, which was well written about in the media, we continued acknowledging that it is important that we do not leave our SMEs behind or divert attention away from that. It is important to acknowledge that as an organization, we thrive to ensure that the inclusion of previously disadvantaged people in our procurement opportunities is not left behind. Whether financially sustainable or not, it is important that as we continue as a going concern, as a business, we must always take care of the communities in which we operate. So ladies and gentlemen, we've put together this robust program, which we hope you will find immense value in. And as indicated, I think Oratile will speak more about the program, but the focus today will be on strategies SMEs can employ in times of disruption, what small businesses who thrived through the pandemic and what they did differently. So you'll hear from experiences from your fellow colleagues and counterparts who can share with you how they survived this difficult time. And we'll have a closer look at opportunities and how to enable your business to access them in the digital era. Tomorrow then we'll have a keynote address by Lincoln Mali, as I indicated, who will be speaking on the topic of leadership while in transition. And Brian Similani will explore business modeling and practical planning tools for SMEs. I encourage you to participate, ask questions, engage, talk to the speakers. The goal here, as I said earlier, is for you to walk away being able to practically apply the learnings and the expertise and experiences you hear from your fellow colleagues and the panelists that will discuss key topics. And hopefully with that, we will contribute towards your sustainability and that you don't just become one of the statistics of some companies that did not make it. Let me wish you well for the rest of the 2 days. And I thank you for participating once again. And good luck with the rest of the session and the program until we speak again. Thank you very much and good luck. Thank you, Oratile.
Thank you, Lebelo. Just to re-emphasize, please don't run away. We have lots of questions for you. And just to re-emphasize to our audiences, please engage, ask questions. We actually even have some gifts for you. We'll let you know how that is going to play itself in terms of what is it that you must do to win. But as a bare minimum is to engage and be with us. Lebelo, a couple of questions for you that are coming through. I'm inspired by this one that speaks to the effect of how do we create profits, value for our shareholders, while at the same time creating value for our communities. There seems to be, especially in a South African context, that there's a little bit of tension between these two dimensions. What are your thoughts there?
Thank you, Oratile. So to me, and particularly Sasol as an organization, it's not a question of profit or communities. It's not an either conversation. It is about ensuring profits and also having a socio-economic impact where we operate. Profits cannot thrum the well-being of the people we are using. It should be a set day where we only focus on generating profits and forgetting key stakeholders that enable us to generate that profit. So although there is your triple BE scorecard, there are other sector codes that require companies to comply with certain obligations as a matter of legal compliance. You would have noticed that in the previous conversations we've been engaging with SMEs, we do not even flash our scorecard to saying we've done enough here, we have enough points here and there. Ours is about the impact, and we direct all our efforts and energy towards making sure that there's impactful engagements with the communities and there's impactful results that we gain out of that. It is not just profit. It is a responsible business that considers the livelihood of all its stakeholders.
Thank you, Lebelo. I have another 2 questions coming from our audiences. Very inspiring questions indeed. But the most challenging one is, given the context of today, is Sasol willing to relax the terms of the loans that are currently being offered to SMEs? It appears that these terms and conditions are still as tough as they were pre-COVID era. Is Sasol looking into that space? What can you share with our audiences?
Thank you, Oratile. I think context is also important here, that the Sasol Siaka Trust is a vehicle we use to deal with one of the important barriers that SMEs face, which is access to finance. Now, we are not a commercial bank. However, it being a legal trust has to follow certain legislation in as far as your FICA requirements are concerned. We are a registered credit provider, and therefore there's legislation and requirements that institutions registered there have to comply with. As a departure point, our Siaka loans are provided at terms much more favorable than your commercial banks. I think it's an important point that we need to make peace with. We provide these loans at much more commercial terms, and we do not go as far as doing a lot of risk assessments as commercial banks would do. So we are mindful of the challenges that SMEs have faced as part of our loans that we have given them. Most of the SMEs who have been performing well in managing their loans approached us as a result of difficulties they were facing. We were able to grant them payment reliefs in certain instances of up to 6 months without any penalties. We've been able to restructure some of these loans and created them for longer periods than they would have been to allow for lower repayments by the SMEs. It is in that context that we were able to acknowledge the difficulty and therefore looked at making it at a much an easier way for the beneficiaries to honor their loans. I must also add, however, that our approach that we want to adopt going forward in enabling SMEs in our fold, I think when you go back in time in Sasol, there was a point where we were giving loans to people with the hope that they will gain work from Sasol and other entities. It creates a bit of a tension between the loan recipient and him not getting work from Sasol. And that's a disconnect that we're dealing with. We want to make sure that people go through a very robust developmental journey that allows them then to access funds, but such that it is almost at the point where we can even guarantee them workload in a later stage, primarily because they will then be in the developmental program that we are running. So it's a different approach that we're wanting to look at, and loans should not be an instrument that we use simply just to disperse funds, but we want to use it to create an impact and be able to see that people who are benefiting from it grow much more than what they're doing, especially moving them away from depending only on Sasol business. We'd like them to grow much bigger, and our programs would ensure we assist them in this regard.
I also like this question because it keeps with the business of why we're here today. And it's directly to us at Sasol, and it speaks to channels, which is one of the topics we're going to be discussing in terms of how do SMEs actually access opportunities today. So this question says, there seems to be multiple channels. There seems to be Ariba, where Sasol plays opportunities, and there's also at the same time Linkage, which seems to be a new platform where people can access opportunities. The question here is, which one is which? Which one is going to be working into the future? Opportunities going to be placed on both of these channels? Which channel should really SMEs be looking into for new opportunities?
Thank you. Thank you. I will not dwell more on this question. Safe to say, we will be talking more to it when she talks about the Linkage platform. But in essence, Ariba remains the platform at which Sasol operates. We've introduced the Linkage platform to be the link between SMEs and Ariba, if you like. It comes with added benefits because within the Linkage platform, you'd be able to be graded as to your readiness to doing business with Sasol, and gaps would be identified. And if you fall within the procurement category that we're targeting for SME development, you then be given opportunities to be registered in that, obviously meeting the minimum requirements for onboarding. And up until to the point you are ready to be audited or accredited as a Sasol supplier. And we're looking at the process of people not having to load their supplier information more than once. So they will try and create a link between the Linkage platform and Ariba to take away some of the duplication of the work that's necessary. But for SMEs benefits, it is important to be on the linkage platform, because it's a very important source of information for enterprise development, but also for procurement officials to look at what is available out there and who are the people we can invite to participate in our requests for quotations as and when required. But I think Mpopi will deal more with that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure how many more questions we can take, but I'm really itching to share this question because I think it's very important, right? So the question is, why does Sasol not have a differentiated criteria for small and large businesses? Because large businesses can sustain a lot of disruptions. Smaller businesses unable to sustain disruptions. How do we then accommodate smaller businesses in terms of differentiating criteria in terms of how we award opportunities?
It's a very loaded question, Oratile, and I don't know from what context it came from, but we do have differentiated criteria. We do have opportunities that we would want to ring fence and say, for example, these are ring fence for a particular SME community. We would then not want them to compete with the bigger entities. As a matter of fact, we'll be rolling out a preferential procurement policy that speaks to the Sasol approaches to various key aspects that we up to now have implemented them, but not in a consistent manner. For example, we as an organization have not been very clear around our set-aside strategy. So we would be in that policy, be clarifying what the Sasol set-aside policy is. And therefore, when things are set aside, there's no need to compete between big and small. We would be very clear on what is the Sasol policy regarding subcontracting. At the moment, we are not prescriptive to the larger entities around how much of their work should be subcontracted to local companies. As a policy that we are implementing, we will be forcing something like that. So it is another attempt of making sure that even the bigger guys within the big scopes that they are receiving, they are somewhat compelled to bring in the smaller guys to participate in those businesses. So we do have differentiated criteria, and from a performance perspective, we have found that we are able to bring in smaller companies to participate in our value chain. We just need to do more of that. I acknowledge we need to bring more of that, and so that many people in the opportunities.
Yeah, and then before I follow up with the question, there's a lot of sentiment that has been shared in the platform. I think it will be remiss of me if I don't share that. So our audiences really appreciate, and they want to thank you for this opportunity to engage, this opportunity to be part of what's happening in the life of Sasol, access opportunities, and they're quite grateful for Sasol to actually do this thing on its own, in terms of being considerate, not only thinking about Sasol needs, but also thinking about the needs of the communities in which we operate. Really, the last question builds onto what you've just said, and it speaks to this issue of subcontracting. The proposition really, and we'd like to have your comment on that, the proposition really is, why should we have this large, projects that we know that SMEs can't deliver that, and then we go through the approach of having large type of RFQs, and then we insist that the larger organizations actually subcontract SMEs. There seems to be a little bit of tension there. It looks like from the comments we're getting, the preference is to think big but act small. So some of these opportunities we have could be decomposed into smaller components, and that's deliberate intention to actually support smaller organizations. Would Sasol consider something to that effect? Because true to the fact is that some of our smaller companies can't deliver at large scale. But we could complement that by going the agile route, if I may use those words, to break down these opportunities into smaller components. And that way, it can be seen as a deliberate intent to actually support the smaller businesses. I'm paraphrasing it as I see the questions because we're running out of time. Would you like to comment on that proposition?
Precisely. The proposition is actually aligned with our transformation agenda and journey. We have, as part of our implementation of our transformation strategy, changed our procurement process, where in the past, at a high level, the procurement process would be there'd be a need identified, the market would be tested, contracts would be placed, and work would be executed. We've implemented a step in between the need and contracting, where we're saying, here's a need to procure or build a particular project. The second step is, how can we use this project as an opportunity to advance enterprise and supply development, which is a deliberate attempt to say, when you do your work breakdown structures in the project, how can we do it such that it allows a larger participation by people from various entities, other than just simply making it one lump sum tanky project when we know then maybe only 3 or 4 multinationals will compete for that. So it is a deliberate intervention where we interrogate each and every procurement item on the table. And yes, it doesn't mean that by that interrogation, every work will be broken down into chunks. So certain works, for example, have to work with a certain window of opportunity, and according to the project drivers, you would adopt the best approach for the project. But we have already implemented some of these, and some of our colleagues and SMEs from eKangala can attest to that. We had taken a big project that was initially clustered as one huge lump sum project, and we broke it down into various components, and many of the local communities in eKangala were able to participate in that project. So it is definitely aligned with our strategy, and we will be doing more of those.
Thank you, Lebelo. And again, just to echo the sentiments of our audiences, they see, and it's also, I'm going to paraphrase because I read a lot of what they're saying. Some of their sentiment is that they're very, very grateful for these opportunities. What they would like us to consider as well is, after today, we should actually be deliberate in doing what we say. The sentiment is that sometimes, as hard at work as we are, sometimes it's a lot more easier to conceptualize, to speak through things, but they would like us to take it a step further and implement some of the insights that we will be getting from the speakers of today. And they wouldn't like this to just be a once-off type of thing. They would like to have a continuous engagement so that we can always work together, co-create, co-share. And really the question there is, would you like to share your final thoughts on how we're going to sustain this? You spoke about our transformation agenda. How are we going to embed that agenda? How are we going to action out that agenda? And they would really would like to see the outcome in terms of the outflow of those actions. Any final thoughts on that before I change gears to episode 1?
Thank you, Ratile, and thank you for the pertinent questions. Let me upfront say to the crux and core challenges that our people are faced with. This is a journey, and maybe it's a journey that does not have an, but it is about us traversing through various platforms together, making sure that everybody is enjoying the benefits of being a South African citizen. It is not so much about a target of we've got 5 programs, we'll implement them, we'll sit back and saying we've done our part and people did not take advantage of it. No. So we would like to evolve as we go along in this journey, particularly with feedback from the people we're engaging with, our SMEs, on how we can improve and change lives. Because we may be having 200 or 300 people in the room today, virtually, and there might be another 300 out there who needs to be taken back to the stage 1 where you have started. And when we do go back there, it should therefore not be seen as Sasol just repeating the old same and old same. It is about acknowledging that not everybody could be here today. But our commitment is we will continue to run these series. Our expectation is you will grab what you can from them and hopefully they'll improve your life. We also expect that when that happens, you are able to come back to us and acknowledge the work that we've done so that we can improve on it, but we can also make use of you as an example, not only to other SMEs, but to other corporates, that if you follow a structured approach that does not speak to the media, I'm saying this in a nice way, but we're not playing into the gallery of saying, look at what we've done, look at what we've done. We want the impact and the work that we're doing to speak for itself. So Oratile, it's a journey, but a journey that we must walk many times, and it's a journey that you have to sometimes go back and start afresh and bring others on board. And as you do that, those who are in front should not feel left out, but rather they should feel they also have a role to play to help pull those others and bring them on board. My last remarks perhaps speaks directly to the SMEs in that one of the most difficult, perhaps not difficult, but one of the most disturbing and sad reality of the journey that we are embarking on is having our own fellow brothers and sisters embarking and entangling themselves in actions and activities that are not acceptable, to some extent unethical. It is not and be fronting. You're taking away energy and resources that we could be using to developing others, but to be dealing with issues that I call dining room, boardroom challenges, where people start a company together and the next thing they are fighting, and we must now be drawn into resolving those arguments. People are fronting, they are happy to enjoy the benefits of being called a 51% shareholder because they've been given a 10% salary increase, or maybe they're getting 4 times their fellow colleagues, but they're not involved in the business, they know nothing about the business. And when they start fighting, they are the ones now coming to us with a whole long list of affidavits and evidence to prove that actually my fellow partner was using me. And yet you've benefited in that relationship for some time. We were happy working with you thinking you are a genuine outfit, only to find out that you're not. So my appeal to my fellow brothers and sisters is just do not sell your soul for a few rands, even if it's millions. Those things never last, but your soul will. And please do not take the good and make it wasted effort.